Well, all right, y'all. All across the USC, Compton, Watts, Bay to LA, Pomona, California, from valley to valley, we represent that killer Cali. So if you keeping it real on your side of your town, you tune in to Gangsta Chronicles. Ew.
Gangsta Chronicles, we gon' tell you how it goes.
If I lie, my nose will grow like Pinocchio. We gon' tell you the truth and nothing but the truth. Ew.
Gangsta Chronicles, this is not your average show.
You're now tuned into the real MC8, Big James, and Big Steel.
This is strictly from the streets.
Hello.
We represent the James.
We'd like to welcome everyone to this special edition of the Gangsta Chronicles podcast. Tonight we have a special guest in here. He's the former CEO of No Limit Records, Mr. Tobin Costen. How you doing tonight, Tobin?
Hey, how you doing, Norm? It's good to see you still. Thanks for having me on the show, man. I mean, I've been waiting. You got all the hottest people on the show, so I was like, man, the fact you reached out to me to be on it, I'm blessed, and I appreciate that.
Oh, for sure, man. We glad to have you on the show, man, because and looking at the No Limit Chronicles, like everybody else in the country at the time when it came out, I think like everybody else in the country at the time, I was, banging No Limit back in the day, just like everybody else.
Yes.
How did you initially hook up with Pete? What was your background? Like, how did you guys connect?
Well, I was in college radio spinning records, and I actually was doing a show, and this is about 92. And I had my godbrother used to work at the Foot Locker. He was the manager at the Foot Locker. So P used to go in there all the time and buy tennis shoes. So I was trying to do a show and I had a rapper bail out on me at the last minute. And I just happened to be talking to my godbrother. And he was like, man, I got this cat, Master P. I know he'll show up and do a show for you. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about him other than I just needed a rapper to do a show. And he came out. I had a couple dollars, put a couple dollars in his pocket, but he came out. He had some T-shirts and did a cool show. And then we met each other and kind of just hit it off. So we just kind of kept in contact during that time. And he would send me stuff and I'd promote and play music on the radio and that kind of stuff. He'd have to send me these cassette tapes and I'd play these cassette tapes and I'd do some giveaway stuff. And that's how we kind of built the relationship. And it wasn't until 1993 is when I kind of came on board and just really started working for No Limit in a variety of capacity. And then at that time in 1993, I had already known St. Charles, who's E40's uncle, was always sending me promotional stuff for me to promote. And I was promoting 40 and the Click and all those guys. And actually, St. Charles was the one who had told P, man, you really need to get Tobin to run the label and be your manager because you really need to show that kind of professional business side. And at that point, P just said, yeah, let's do this. Because I had already cultivated a good relationship. I had all these ideas about marketing and different strategy and how to get more positioning in retail and really how to try to sell records without necessarily having that radio play and going through college radio and kind of building that buzz and building that name. And then at that time, when St. Charles reached out and St. Charles was talking to P, man, you really need to get with Tobin. P's the one that said, okay, you're going to run the label. You're going to be my manager, business and personal manager. And that's kind of how things kind of took off from there. Because if you look at how No Limit was structured prior to that point of me coming on board, P put out probably about 17 different projects that no one was really checking for. And then when we got together and we did The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me, and then we put together the West Coast Bad Boys, that's when things started to take off from there.
Now, let me ask you this. So what do you think it was that wasn't resonating with the people about P's music at first?
Well, I think it was, you got to understand that P quite didn't have his own sound. If you listen to all the old stuff prior to The Ghetto's Trying to Kill Me, production was okay, but it wasn't really at that professional level. So when people would listen to it, they were kind of like, well, they would listen to it, but they weren't really like, okay, I got to buy this record. And I think what happened was when we started to work with folks like, Al Eaton and Ken Franklin and really start developing that West Coast sound, that's when people wanted to listen to more of what P was doing. Like EA Ski and his production, that's when people started really like, okay, we've taken our production game to another level, and then people wanted to hear what P was doing.
Because he sure seemed like he came out of nowhere. So he had 17 full-length albums out before that. And I do remember.
Well, they weren't full lengths, but they were singles, EPs, albums, all kinds of projects he was doing prior to. So like anyone who watches the No Limit Chronicles will see, it started off from a retail store and it was doing shows and opening up for people and doing promotion. And it took a while. It was years. So if you think about 1988, 89, when No Limit started, to 92 when I kind of came on board, to 93 when we started to get regional success. And by the time we came out in 94 with the West Coast Bad Boys, that's what put P on the map nationally. So even though it was a West Coast record, people from the Midwest and part of the South started to want to check out this West Coast Bad Boy sound and what we were doing.
So let me ask you this. When did you guys first realize that you was on to something?
I think when we did it, P always had belief in himself and what he was doing. I think what we realized when we had something special is when we did the Ghettos Trying to Kill Me. So if you look at the Ghettos Trying to Kill Me album, it was P in bed with this woman. It was King George was in the back with a gun, kind of portraying the ghetto. And when people saw that concept of the Ghettos Trying to Kill Me, and we did this record called 211, talk about robbing liquor stores, that's when we started to see we had something. And then what happened was there was this guy that was going around robbing liquor stores, and he was robbing people at ATMs. And when he got arrested, he had told people that the Master P record 211 is what made him go out and rob these people. Because every time he listened to the record, before he robbed people, he would go listen to the record, or he had the record in the tape deck, and he was listening to it before he robbed people. So then at that point is when folks started to really know who we were, and we started to kind of build that name. So that was really, when we knew like, wow, we have something. When we were affecting people and their whole thought process and what they're doing, and we started to be in the newspaper and on television, and that's when we knew, okay, we could really make something big out of this. Okay,
so, and Peace also, he started to kind of form his own identity.
Absolutely. At that point, he started to realize, because before that, he was kind of taking a little bit of sound from this artist and that artist and wasn't sure which direction to go. But by the time we did by the time we went through that process and did that record, The Ghettos Trying to Kill Me, and then we started to put things together for the West Coast Bad Boys, that's when ultimately we knew we had something and things were starting to move. And by the time we put that West Coast Bad Boys record out, and it hit Billboard charts, and it was on for consecutive weeks, and then next you know it, everyone's calling us and wanting to do something with us because we were not only were we selling a lot of records, but we were on the Billboard charts. That's when folks started to kind of just say, okay, Master P is doing something different, and what we're doing at No Limit is special.
So what made you guys go in a direction? Because I noticed on West Coast Bad Boys and stuff, you guys were working with a lot of different producers, mostly Bay Area producers. When was it decided, when do you think it was decided that they would go the route and bring in like a Beats by the Pound? Like who decided that?
Well, I think it was more about having a home base. So if you look at Master P would sell records up in the Northwest in Seattle and Portland and that area, in the Midwest. So you talk about Kansas City, Missouri, Iowa, we were selling records there, parts in the South and parts in the West Coast. And to make sure we had a home base, because if you think about most popular rappers, they have a home base, whether they're from parts of New York or they're from Louisiana, they're from Texas, wherever, they have a home base. And at that point, P was kind of an outsider because he wasn't, he didn't sound like a West Coast rapper because he had this real Southern accent. And he really, even though he spent time in Richmond and in the Bay Area, he represented the Bay Area with the West Coast Bad Boys, but people didn't really, know P as being a California guy. Because all the California folks were like, oh, you're not from out here, you country. So going back south was, I think, what we decided to do, and even bringing on Beast by the Pound, that had to do with Mr. Sturvon and his relationship with KLC, and then also Moby Dick being P's cousin, and then building a relationship with Mia X. We knew we had to have that Southern sound. But the reason why we went to the South was to build that home base, and then just to be frank, a dollar went a lot further in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee than it did in California. Like, I could spend $5,000 in California, and that's not going to get you as much as if you spend $5,000 in Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, or Alabama. So from a financial standpoint, we had more to work with from a budgetary standpoint in the South. P was from the South, so he wanted to go home. We spent a lot of time down there. His relationship with Mia X, Servon, KLC, Moby Dick, it just made sense that we do something with the South, and the South had that really deep bass, that sound that we were looking for.
At that time, man, him coming from the Bay Area, like you said, he sounded like a Louisiana cat. So I'm pretty sure it was some kind of resistance up there. Did he get a lot of hate in the Bay?
Yeah, I would say not from the fans, but some of the artists had a problem that P came on the scene. So think about this. We do the West Coast Bad Boys. We take all the popular rappers on the West Coast throughout the Bay Area, and we put them on an album. We put Master P Presents on the top of that album, so everybody thought Master P was the leader of all these folks. So who do you have on there? You have folks like from Sacramento, like Sibo. You have JT the Bigger Figure. You have the Delinquents. When you start thinking about these artists that are on, we had Rappin' Forte. So all of these rappers that are popular in their hoods, and Master P is presented as the leader of this crew. So at that point, we put all these records we are working on the inside of the West Coast Bad Boys. So people were like, man, P is representing the West Coast Bad Boys. And that kind of built a name for us. So I would say that there were artists out there who was just like, man, who did P think he is? He's not from here. He came here and he solidified himself with the fans by being, the head of the West Coast Bad Boys or leading the West Coast Bad Boys.
Oh, that's dope, man. So y'all moving units now, man. Y'all starting to sell a lot of records and everything.
Yes.
The attention from the record labels coming out, right?
Absolutely.
Who was the first one? Who was the first major to hit you guys up?
Well, Big Beat Atlantic was kind of rushing at us pretty hard. MCA was contacting us. RCA was contacting us. Universal was in the mix at that particular time, but Big Beat Atlantic was probably the label, and Craig Common was the one that was pushing so hard for Master P. And ultimately P would have actually signed with them. And the whole thing was P was ready to sacrifice the Master P name by getting money from Big Beat Atlantic. And the whole plan, what he wanted to do was he was going to take whatever money he was going to get from Big Beat Atlantic and put that money into Silk the Shocker and put that money into No Limit Records. And I was the person who said, we're not going to do that. It doesn't make sense. We can hold out. Because believe it or not, C Murder and King George wanted to beat me up because they was like, I was messing with their money because we were looking at a pretty decent sized amount of money. So what we did was we kind of rolled it out. We rolled the dice on doing the next record. So after the West Coast Bad Boys came out and we were hot, we did another record called 99 Ways to Die. So when he probably, if we wouldn't have did 99 Ways to Die, he may have signed there if I wouldn't have said, no, we're not, let's hold on. If they were going to give us X amount of dollars, but a small percentage, if we hold on. And this is after we had met with Leroy Bobbitt, who was an entertainment attorney, and he was a partner at Loeb and Loeb, and I met him through a guy named Gary Reeves, who is executive producer of a TV show called Give TV with Blair Underwood and one of the Bush daughters. he's the one who introduced me to Mr. Bobbitt, and Mr. Bobbitt was kind of explaining what kind of deals we could get. So between him and then I had some conversations with folks like Wendy Day from the Rap Coalition, they both were kind of saying to me, like, you know, here are the different type of deals. Here's the production deal. Here's an artist deal. And I kind of just said, well, look, if we're selling all these records now independently with no distribution, or with our distribution, national distribution, but no real mechanical arm like an Atlantic Records, or no real mechanical arm like a Capitol or Priority. Just imagine if we could hold on, own our masters, and then start driving business. And all we need folks to do is just to make sure they're in the system and in the retail store. So when we turned down the Big Beat Atlantic deal, we connected with EA Ski. We started talking to Priority, and then at that particular time, we did a distribution deal with Priority to do our albums. So the 99 Ways to Die album was out. It was on the Billboard charts. We had success with the West Coast Bad Boys. Priority was really focused on the next album, which was the TRU True album and the Down South Hustlers. And that was really what they wanted. They wanted the True album and the Down South Hustlers, but the real thing was, like, the icing on the cake was the Ice Cream Man was the one that we knew was going to be a big record. So at that point, we signed.
Was that you guys have started working on the Ice Cream Man that far in advance?
Yeah, so we had already did the artwork. So one thing about the one thing we always did the artwork on the inside. So any album you saw, 9 times out of 10, those records weren't recorded yet. So what we might do is do 1 or 2 songs, we record some stuff and figure out which song's going to go on which album. So at that particular time, the Ice Cream Man wasn't done. In fact, at that point, we hadn't done one song. We had promoted the Ice Cream Man so much, and we promoted the Down South Hustlers so much that the distributors, the retail stores, were waiting on the album. Like, they wanted that Ice Cream Man, and they wanted that Down South Hustlers. Those albums we were promoting those albums 1-2 years in advance, and people were kept waiting on the album. So that's really what it was. So by the time we did the distribution deal, which was an 85-15 split, 85% for us and 15% for them, they were already waiting on the True album. They were waiting on the Down South Hustlers, and they really wanted that the Ice Cream Man album.
So yeah, let me ask you this for the people that don't know out there. When he went to Priority, Big Beat Atlantic, they wanted to give him like an artist deal. So they was gonna give him, front load him with a bunch of money up front for a low percentage.
Absolutely.
When you guys took the Priority deal, I assume there was no upfront money?
No, so originally there was no advance money. It was, we're just gonna do a distribution deal. What came after the fact, when they wanted to start these albums, that's when they came back and they wrote us a check. So they wrote us a check for some money, and then they really wanted the Down South Hustler album. The question was, how much do you need to get this Down South Hustler album done? So once they gave us money for that, an advance for that, that's when the percentages went from 85-15% to 80-20. So they took 5%. They took 5% back in order to advance this money to finish the Ice Cream Man album, to record the Ice Cream Man album and the Down South Hustlers. So we pretty much did TRU album, the Down South Hustlers, the Ice Cream Man, Mia X's project. She had a EP she was doing.
Okay, wow, man. So we got us something that we gonna be doing together, man. We just scratching the tip of the iceberg with this thing. The whole No Limit thing, man, is just such one of those interesting stories, because it's a feel-good story. It's the, like, rags to riches, you know, the country boy goes to the big city and strikes it rich, man.
Yes.
Y'all had an incredible thing going, but eventually it started being some dissension. Do you think things change when the money start really coming in?
I mean, I don't even know if it was just about the money. I just think what happens is when people are concerned about, I think ultimately it wasn't even about the money, because for me, I was all in on what we were doing because I believed in what we were doing. I think it was just had to do with people start to wonder, you know, who's saying what and doing what, and there's all this talk about whose album's going to come out next, and whether they want to, you know, do their own thing because their album's not coming out for several months, and we see other people being moved up, and I mean, you know, there's just that whole, you know, at the end of the day, people get frustrated by where they are and what place they are in their position, and I think that just was the dynamic of the frustration of, you know, where's my place in the label and where that goes. I think certain artists were probably frustrated financially about where money was going and where they think the money should have went. But at the end of the day, you know, it was No Limit. Master P was the CEO of No Limit. I was the executive vice president and manager and ran the label and managed him and pretty much managed the artist. It was a family affair. And like anything, when you bring money into the fold, it does kind of create this kind of dissension in the ranks. But it's also, how are we communicating when people's projects are coming out and what that looks like? And sometimes there could be some frustration around, well, wait a minute, my album's supposed to come out at this particular point. I got bills to pay. I got things to do. I'm ready to blow up. But then I might be moved down on the pecking order, and because for whatever reason, maybe it's the sound, maybe the idea or the ideas or the projects or people are asking, distributors asking or retailers are asking for specific records, and people get moved down in pecking order. It happens like that in a major label too, right? You know, my album's supposed to come out and then it gets on the shelf for several months and you don't have the right sound yet, so we're going to push you back. All of that thing is kind of how it works.
Yeah, man. You know, you got a real interesting story, man, and there's way more to it. But I'm gonna cut it short because we have us a special project that we are going to be doing, and I'll be making that announcement real soon. Tobin, where can they find you at, brother?
Well, you know, you can get on my website at Tobin, Tobin, Costen, COSTEN.com. You can follow me on Instagram at Tobin Costen. That's probably the best way to connect with me. But if you go to my website, TobinCosten.com, people email me. You can email me on there, and I usually get back to people pretty quick via email or phone number. I would just tell people, leave your phone number because I'm good with text and calling. I'm a little bit better old school with picking up the phone, with calling people and having a conversation. I mean, that's kind of how we connected, and I try to get back.
That's me too. I don't like doing the whole Instagram thing. I get people, they don't ask for numbers anymore. What's your Instagram page? And it's like, dude, take my phone number and call me. I don't check those messages in there. I don't check those messages like that.
Well, you know, I usually, if people get at me, I don't have it where it notifies me, so I got to log on there. But I usually tell people, if you get on my website, you reach out to me, I will, and email me. Most people don't email me their phone number. So I just tell folks all the time, if you email me your phone number, I will text you or call you, and so we can have a conversation. And that's, you know, I try to get back to everyone. And a lot of times people will be like, whoa, you got back to me. And I did that even when I was at No Limit. It was really important for me when people sent information to me, pick up the phone and call or mail them and let them know and give them feedback. Especially when folks are giving me demo tapes. I'm always real big about, hey, if somebody sends me their demo tape, I want to make sure that I do my part and at least get back to them and give them feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And not just leave them hanging.
Let me ask you something, because you just led me into a question. Out of those demo tapes that you got in, how much good shit did you find?
I probably would say one out of 20. So what was that, 5%? Probably 1 out of 20. I'd find something that I'm like, okay, there's something here. Sometimes you find something that's just a diamond in the rough. There were a lot of artists that we got demo tapes for when we did the Down South Hustlers that we were like, whoa, these are underground cats and they sounded good. Let's try to do something with them. So I would say probably 5% of the time. There'd be a bunch of people would send you stuff and be like, whoa. But I always got back to people and let them know what I thought, good, bad, or indifferent. Like I would always tell people, hey, you know, just keep working, keep grinding. Or I would tell people like, hey, this is not for us, but I would just encourage you to keep working. I always told people to keep working, even if I didn't like what they were doing.
So did you have, so you just said you put a couple of those cats in the Down South Down South Hustlers.
Absolutely.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Any of them wind up? Any artists that we know from No Limit that kind of came from the whole demo tape thing?
Well, more than likely, PKO, who was on the Down South Hustlers, those guys from Texas was on there. 20 to Life was on there. We got their tape or their demo tape. The other one was CCG, Scandal City G's from Kansas City. They were on that Down South Hustlers, and they put out a solo album that hit Billboard. So nobody really big, but there were just artists on there that we got that were talented. And we put them on and did some projects with, whether it was a compilation or we put something together or we did shows with them, and that's really the key. You got a good sound. I don't care if you're recording on a 4-track cassette or you're doing something digitally high end. If you got talent, it'll show.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. I appreciate you sitting down with us tonight, bro.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you, and I always love what you do, and just to be part of one of your shows with all the legends that you have on, man. It's a complete honor for me.
Oh man, you a legend yourself, man. I can't wait, man. I can't wait to show the world what we got cooking up. And for the record, it's not nothing on there derogatory about Master P. We not promoting none of that. We talking about Tobin's story. Every story has two sides.
Yes.
We out of here. We appreciate you, Tobin.
I appreciate you guys. Be safe. Thank you.
Finally get